and would be boom. That's it.
Right. Tapis.
Yeah. Tapis. Means all in for those who don't understand.
Yes, tapis means all in.
I like tapis. Something very fun about that as a way of saying all in.
Yeah. Tapis. You know the translation, right? For tapis.
Exactly.
No, what is it?
Carpet.
Carpet?
Yeah.
Oh, so like all the way to the carpet.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Tapis. Actually, it means like the cloth. We call it tapis.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually what I have in front of me on the tapis, on the clothes. I put it in. So that's tapis. That's the reason why.
Okay. Fabrice is raised.
It's the same word for that and for that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's tapis.
And the call from Sabare.
But 7-10 is his hand tonight.
And he's made a pair with it.
He made a pair.
But it's not the right one.
Yeah, but
Jacks versus 10. This could get interesting.
But a 10 or a 7 might come.
Yes.
It could be the end of it as well.
Or an 8 for a straight. Savari's got to like this flop, right?
No, but that might be
it.
like an all-in situation here. Yeah. He might move all in. He might. No, he said. Did he say all in? I think he said all in. I tell you.
Oh my goodness!
I told you.
Yeah,
might
he's
be
just
an all
so
in.
ready to go.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have a steak tonight.
Not rooting against anybody.
No, for sure not.
No.
They're both nice people. Both nice guys.
Yep.
I deserve it. And he's got plenty of cards. He's got like 32%. It's not nothing.
Yes. 9 outs there. 10, 8, or 7. 6 on the turn.
It's not enough.
You can play with a spade. And the river's a deuce.
This is it. This
And
is
that
it.
is it.
Wow.
And we got a winner. It was very, very quick, actually. Yeah. Wow. But I felt like 7, he won a big hand with that. And on there, he had like second pair and draws. Wow.
Wow.
He would have moved in, yeah. I'm not surprised. This is it. We have a winner.
That's it. We have a winner. Second place is going to Sabari Atamani, who takes home $133,000. And our winner, $177,240, which includes the $10,400 World Championship seat to win Las Vegas. It's picture time, ladies and gentlemen. We have a winner. And there goes the Eiffel Tower, little, I believe that's...
Ring by Pinky.
It's brought by Pinky to the table. We have Alex Gray up there. It was a great event, Bruno. Really thank you for participating in that.
My pleasure. It was a great time.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time we do that together, right?
Which commentary?
Commentary?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah. Fun.
Yeah, Tony and I
Was fun.
work together quite often on this, and always great to have Tony in there telling me what I'm doing wrong. I do appreciate that. The winner for the vainqueur.
Le vainqueur
is Fabrice
Bigot.
Bigot. 177,240. Say it in French.
Fabrice Bigot, le vainqueur pour 177 240 € au Club Circus, le WPT Prime.
That's correct.
Merci, Tony.
Merci,
I hope
Tony.
to see you soon, buddy.
So do I. Thank you very much for having me in the booth today and for taking care of the first couple of hours tonight. It's been a pleasure working with you both. And Bruno, I hope to see you on your home turf in the near future.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Matt, I will see you back in the West Coast of the United States. And until next time, take care.
And the Super Bowl's coming up. All right, thank you very much. And Fabrice Bigot,
you.
our champion, right here from WPT Prime Paris.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
You already know the World Poker Tour has brought you life-changing events for the last 20 years. But now it's never been easier to win your package to a WPT destination by going to WPTglobal.com, the online home of the World Poker Tour.
Sign up today by clicking the link in the YouTube description below and use bonus code LS92 and get a free satellite ticket to the WPT World Championship.
these guys. Got my shot. Got this. If I get the call, I prepare for this day. One time. Breathe.
You never know when your time is going to come. To rise above the rest. To seize the opportunity. To be crowned a champion. Is it time for your story to be told? The World Poker Tour.
Hey, we are here at the Star Gold Coast for World Poker Tour Prime, a record-breaking event, and we have our final table now. In seat number 1, you have Mo Hederi with 2.525 million. Second seat is Gary Lynn with 6.150. In seat number 3 is Ben Richardson with 1,850,000. Slav Rapinski in seat 4 with 775,000. Norman Mirza with 1,275,000. Anita Savage, no relation, in seat number 6 with 5,050,000. Our chip leader in seat number 7 won his way in through a milestone event for 8,725,000. He is a chip leader. Shang Yi in seat 8 with 6,525,000, and Josh Foster in seat number 9 with 3,900,000. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing well tonight, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been good. The weather's been terrible in Las Vegas, but I'm
Yes,
sure
it
you're
has.
seeing some of that. It's just unbelievable. But looks like they had some great weather down there and a great event. Record-breaking 1,224 entries in this event at 2,000 Aussie dollars to get in.
Just a hair under 375,000 Australian dollars going to our winner. So nearly 200 times their entry fee. That would be an incredible feat for one of our 9 players.
Yep, that's right. And we get to see our the card shoe that they have there for Hold'em. We haven't seen that in a little while. I think we did this event last year as well, Tony. So it's good to see that back in play.
Well, in my experience, the dealers in Australia are top-notch, and the tables run quite smoothly there. The Star in Gold Coast has a great reputation for running tournaments. I played one once there a long time ago.
All right, we're getting folds around here. We have Josh also in this pot. He folds as well.
Now we have a mix of experience levels at this 9-handed final table. 3 of our players do have 6-figure scores. A handful of others have a mid 5-figure score, and a couple of our players did not write down their largest score on our bio sheets, which leads me to believe this is probably one of their first major tournament accomplishments, maybe a lot of nerves going into this final table. We will see how they fare here tonight.
The final 9 players, again, 1,224 entries. Not a little action on the first hand here, but they actually came back today with 2 tables. Didn't quite make it to the final table last night, but they're here now, and we are happy to be there as well.
That's right. There is a 12-hour limit on the duration somebody can spend in the casino in Australia, or at least in this. It's not the word state. What is it? Territory? What? Remind me.
Province, maybe a province, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a province.
In Australia. So I believe that is the conditions there, and so they did need to come back, as you said, to approach the final table today. Played
Yes,
down to it over the last few hours.
Hoping they don't have to play 12 hours today.
Right.
They've already been playing about 3 today, maybe 4. Tell me a little bit about the Star Casino. You've been there before. I haven't been there. What's it like?
I've been there once. I played a tournament there a long time ago. Now, if I remember right, again, it's been some time. It is not a casino on the beach the way you think of Gold Coast. It's actually a little more back. Gold Coast is very much the Florida of Australia. It is kind of the resort destination. The people who graduate high school and are about to go to college, they go there for what's called schoolies, where a bunch of 18-year-olds come and party and drink and just tear the town apart. A little bit like Daytona Beach down in Florida. The casino itself, a really nice property, kind of back a little moved from the water. I don't think I had any success there. Otherwise, I would have a stronger memory of my trip. I just know that I was enjoying the vacation very much.
Gary just moved all in there for $6 million. So I'm not sure exactly what position he was in, but that was an interesting. He is in the small blind. Moved all in for $6 million.
And so I am guessing that he covers the stack of the big blind player by a significant degree.
That is correct. He, let's see. Yeah, Ben had $6 million all in there. I mean, Gary had $6 million all in there, and Ben, one of the shorter stacks with 1.85 million.
I believe we are playing 75,000, 125,000 with the 125K big blind ante. So that was essentially about a 12 to 15 big blind jam there from the small blind.
And you're okay with that, right, Tony?
Yeah, certainly a pair of 10s. Certainly capable of it. If anything, you could discuss trying to induce with a hand that big. If you thought maybe limping in would get the player to move all in. For example, if we were just playing for chips and not at a final table, I think a limp is actually the preferred play. But if you think your opponent in the big blind is going to play very tight, maybe you should commit the money for them. But it's quite close there with 10s. It's a little counterintuitive to play it so passively with the limp, but it's often how you get them to put the money in with the hand that's dominated more often.
All right, we're only seeing one of Anita's cards. It's a 6. We also have a 6 deuce for Slav and king queen with Ben, and they are in for 125, which is the minimum. And Ben does flop top pair with the kings. Does go check around. 4 of diamonds on the turn. Now Anita has a 1 diamond. We don't know if she has 2.
Right.
Slav turned a gut shot straight draw as well.
Benjamin, one of the players here who has a 6-figure score. I believe his largest score was about 200,000. And he's bet 175 here with the king queen. We definitely like this bet. I think it is time to get value for his hand. Nice to have the queen of diamonds to back it up for a little bit of protection. Should the river be a diamond, you'd be less concerned than usual. Anita making the call off the 5 million stack. And Benjamin got to like that river top 2 pair. Seems unlikely Anita has something that can call his river bet, but we don't know too much about her limping range.
Ben's taking his time. We are using the action clocks, so we do have 30 seconds which you can act on your hand. And you see those chips behind. Ben does bet 700,000, and that will win this pot.
And if I had to guess, Matt, Anita either had a pair of 6s or the a6 of diamonds. Would certainly be the most logical hands to play that way.
There you go.
So 9 players at our final table. I believe our chip leader came in with about 8 million, was it, Matt? Remind me?
He had a little bit less than that. He was, 8,725,000. That is correct.
Yes, 8 million.
And he did win his seat in a qualifying event. A friend of mine named Bruno Rao has a pavilion poker room in Sydney. It's the home of the WPT League, and that's where he won his seat. So this is a big come up here if he were to finish this off. As winning your way in through a satellite, we'd love to see that.
Well, we talked before about the winner getting almost 200 times their money. But if you satellite it in, oh my goodness, just think of the parlay.
Absolutely.
Well, it was disappointing that our WPT Latin America commentator, Angel Guillen, of course, the husband of our anchor woman, Lynn Gilmartin, did not make this final table. He won the $5,000 preliminary event. Heads up against poker legend Joe Hashem. Very cool that that's who he beat heads up in a tournament in Australia.
Absolutely. And I hear he is in position here to possibly win the Player of the Festival. There's another event going on right now, which he's fired 2 bullets now, Lynn has told me, and to try and win that Player of the Festival.
Oh, man. Well, best of luck to him. It is a very long grind to play the 5K, win that, play the main event, make it this deep in it, and then jump immediately into a 500. But I appreciate his grind.
Sure. And you said you looked up some of these stats. You said 3 players have 100K scores. None of them as big as this tournament, though, correct?
No, none of them is big. Ben has the largest score. It was 200,000. I can't say if that was USD or AUD. The conversion right now is to ballpark 70 cents on the dollar. Perhaps just a hair on that. The US dollar is at a very strong run, certainly over the last year. And so, you know, in relation to a lot of these other currencies that we have some of our international events in, it's starting to really rise over the last few months. And so the $374,953 that our winner will get converts to $253,000 USD. So over $250,000 in US dollars.
Absolutely. It's a lot of money. Doesn't matter what
A lot of money. No.
version that's in.
All right, Slav here. And if I'm seeing this right, just about 3 to 4 big blinds for Slav with an ace on the button. He will be going for it with this ace-6. He's all in. And so short that the big blind is essentially priced into calling with any 2 cards, but just behind him, Noman in the small blind has an ace-9, also under 10 big blinds. I imagine he will want to go for it as well. Yes, he does. And now with Anita in the big blind, and even she could consider closing the action with a call here. It's rather close. Certainly if it had just been Slav, she would call. Now facing these 2 all-ins, but again, the price pretty good for Anita. So we do see her considering this.
Could bust 2 players here.
She's going to let it go. The Noman, the nice edge here. Some possibility of the chop pot, of course. The ace-9 a solid favorite. And I believe that has already been subtracted from the equities we see next to their hand. Ten, 9, 7, all spades. So Slav with the great flop, holding both the 6 and the only spade. Noman, as we see there, looking for a 9 or an 8 that is not a spade.
And there
King of spades on the turn. We'll lock this one up for Slav. He will get the double up. Noman will be extremely short going forward. King of clubs on the river, and you know, it's only a 3 to 4 big blind bad beat, but when it's half your stack and eliminating somebody at the final table that would allow you to make one of the pay jumps, that is quite a costly suck out there. You can kind of see the frustration in Noman's eyes.
Can't like it, although, you know, you always like to make that final table. And sometimes people just limp into this final table and, you know, they're happy with that finish.
Yeah, in the event that you know, suffered some brutal suck out leading up to the final table, and then were able to just ladder 1 or 2 spots, it can actually feel like a pretty good result. Depends how short your memory is, really. There's a saying that the guy who finishes third is the happiest player in the tournament besides the winner. You know, and when your expectations get so high that, you know, I'm gonna win this, I got heads up, I'm gonna win this, and then they fail to realize often that disappointment doesn't quite make up for what could have been in your mind. And I'll cut that speech off to talk about Benjamin's Kings here. Ben now at 2.2 million after chipping up with that King Queen in the earlier hand, with the Cowboys on the hijack. So nothing cute here. He'll go for the minimum.
And that'll win it right away, I believe. Oh, no, Andreas is still there.
And Andreas with just enough hand here that he could consider seeing the flop, especially as the chip leader in the covering stack. We generally look for more excuses to play hands out of the big blind than as one of the shorter stacks around the final table. But it does depend a little bit on our perception of our opponent's opening range. If we think they're going to play very, very tight, then we have to fold a little bit tighter out of the big blind. If we think they're mostly going to play close to their typical ranges, then we look to get to a little more. We look to get to a few more flops and make their life difficult post-flop. So Andreas does make the call with the King 9. And on this Ace-5-4 all-spade flop, neither of our players are very happy with what they see.
Deck is full of spades tonight, Tony.
Yes, it is. A pretty reasonable board for Ben to consider checking back. If he thinks Andreas is going to play very cooperatively, he could just bet real small here. Pot is 700K, and he's going to bet 175. Certainly a fine option available to him. It's nice to knock out low spades. You know, if Andreas called something like 10-9 with the 9 of spades, it's pretty nice to just bet and knock that hand out immediately. If you think he'll fold that kind of thing, so one small bet. Or even, you know, a gut shot straight draw with like a 8-7. 8-7 with a spade. Certainly you'd be happy to get rid of that hand with kings.
Right, and Andreas does let it go. A fine bet and a fine fold, right, Tony?
Absolutely. As I said, Ben can consider checking back on the flop, but if he believes that Andreas is not likely to use his big stack to check raise him aggressively, then just betting and trying to simplify the hand, and as I said, deny the equity of some of these, you know, low spade, you know, gut shot, straight draw type of hands works out pretty well. And if Andreas does come to life and check raises him, he can be pretty comfortable folding kings with no spade.
Oops.
Although it never feels good to fold the kings. You know, you wait so long for these quality hands, and then it's like you get to the flop, and you're like, all right, I'm going to put in one big blind, and if anybody breathes on the pot, I guess I have to give it up. I've been waiting hours for this one, but okay.
Josh now with the ace jack of hearts. Raises to 275. And then
Josh
Gary with
Foster.
ace queen.
One of those players with a 6-figure score to his name of 120K. He got started as a 16-year-old playing online. 32 now, so he's been in the game 15, 16 years.
Wait, you can play online poker at 16, Tony?
Perhaps he was playing Play Money, Matt.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense. All right, Noman now with 10-9 of diamonds. He lets that go. And Anita Savage, again, no relation, decides to make the call here with Jack 9 of clubs. Sheng also with an ace here. Decides to make that call as well. Four players in this pot. And we'll go to the flop. One club, And a 6 trade deuce flop. 2 diamonds. Sheng has the ace of diamonds. Gary with the queen of diamonds. Nobody has really connected here, although Sheng has flopped bottom pair.
Not often you see a 4-way flop. Do you think Sheng's hand in the big blind with Gary out there covering him should probably be a fold pre-flop? It's a little bit of a trap to get stuck in here defending these weak aces out of the big blind. Certainly not some, catastrophic mistake or anything. And it's interesting that he leads right out, which is an intriguing play. I kind of like it in a way. It's such a low board that it's very likely to check around. You've got the ace of diamonds as backup there. As we see, he just knocked out 2 players who had a lot of overcards and equity against his hand. As we find out, the 6 on the turn would have been nice and safe for Sheng. But being heads up against Gary and building a pot is not really what he should want. They are essentially tied for second chip position with some very short stacks around the table. So it's a disaster for Sheng to end up in a pot where he would somehow get stacked by Gary. Now, that's not that likely at this stack depth, but it's something to be cognizant of. He used a time bank chip.
Looked like he threw all of them out there.
No. I think he just slid one. Oh my goodness, you're right. He threw all his time bank chips out there. All right, well.
What is going on here?
He is befuddled. And sort of an awkward spot here, because if you bet and you get called, it's pretty much always by a better hand. But if you check, and this is not quite what I would choose unless I had decided to hell with my deuce. I'm turning my hand into a bluff to represent the 6 or 4-5. And I think if I were in his shoes and I was going to bet, well, it's very strange because if you block again, you certainly don't drive out any better pairs, and it's hard to get called by ace high again, especially when you have one of the aces and it's the ace of diamonds in your hand. So if you decide I'm going to bet big and then I'm going to follow through on the river and I'm going to block the deuce for one of the potential sets, then maybe the only hand that calls me is pocket 3s, which my opponent may not even call pre-flop. So if I just blast the turn and unload on the river, what's he going to do about it?
There was some discussion here, but apparently, let's see what happened there. Oh, he did get his time bank chips back. Now, Tony, as a TD, if you throw out all the time banks, there was some discussion about this. If you throw them all out, they all play, no matter how many of them you use.
I see. Okay.
I think he might have just made him err there by doing that. Hopefully they're explaining that to him, and they did give him his chips back. However, it's not necessarily a spot where they have to give them all back.
So he may believe that I know I'm going to need some time for this decision. So here's all my time bank chips. You go ahead and take whatever I spend.
Right.
The way he was
exactly. But in reality, if you throw them all out at once, you're actually using all of them at once. So I don't think that that's happened here. So he did get his chips back. I think I would be okay with that ruling, but not necessarily the correct way to use those time bank chips.
I'm going to keep that in mind for future WPT events. I mean, I very rarely end up even using my time bank chips, but I definitely won't toss them all out at once, even when I know I'm going to need some time.
Correct. All right, so here's Noman. He does make it raise to 575 and all in, yeah.
Yeah, 5 blinds here.
Nita folds, and now to Andreas, who has 8.3 million. And it looks like he's making that call and does. Now Sheng behind still has a hand here. He does make the call. He 3-bet at 1.1 million. Sheng folds 9-8 suited. And now Josh lets the King 7 go.
No one's going to be very surprised that he is chopping. He's got to think, oh, this dude raised. Even if he's just attempting to isolate me and get the dead money from the blinds to turn this into a well-priced all-in with a hand that plays well when it sees 5 cards. I must be behind. But no, your Jack 10 is in fact tied.
And
So-
there are 2 diamonds on the flop, but no player has a diamond, so it will be a split pot here, no matter what happens. And they both make straights. So the money
All
would have
smiles.
gone in it. The money would have gone in at some point. And 8 on the river is meaningless. Both players with a straight and a split pot. So we don't have the sound of the players. I'm not sure if they're hearing that on the stream as well. But I'm checking the chat in the YouTube stream, which we are streaming on YouTube, on Twitch, on all of our WPT channels. So I'm not sure they're hearing the players either. So they're asking for the payouts, and I can provide that.
Yeah, I got those right here for you, Matt. So our winner tonight taking home 374,000 AUD, including a WPT World Championship package. Second place, 238,000. Just under 239. Third place taking 176,000. Fourth, 132,000. Fifth, just a hair under $100,000 at 99.6. Sixth place taking home 75,900. Seventh, 58.5. Eighth place finisher, 45,500. And ninth and 10th get $35,847.
Noman now with King 7. Is pondering shoving again, which he does do. He has 750,000, 737,500 to be exact, and he's all in.
Looks like he's leaving 1 chip behind, if I saw that right. Maybe I just missaw. Sometimes players do that in the very unlikely event that there's 2 all-ins behind them and they try and move up the pay ladder. Because we do see the 13K next to his name, but I don't think any 1K chips are in play, so I'm not quite sure what that's about.
There's also an advantage with Big Blind Ante to do that because you do pick up all the antes as well. And Andreas does make the call, and he does have him dominated there with the Ace-7
Yeah.
over the King-7.
Yeah, Andreas raising actually here, basically doubling it up to 1.4 million.
Noman cannot be happy to see that.
This time, no surprise where somehow your hand is actually chopping. So Noman will need some good fortune here with the King 7. And not a bad start for him, although there is an ace on the board. There's 2 clubs, so he goes from 3 outs to 12. Any club now would give him a flush. Andreas would be redrawing to a full house. 4 diamonds on the turn, no help. Noman, 20% here, as we can see, needing one of these clubs, or he will be our 8th place finisher. Excuse me, 9th place finisher. And it is the 8 of spades. That will be all she wrote.
So Noman does bust out in 9th place, taking home 35,847. Not too bad. And down to the final 8, 45,564 for the next player to be eliminated.
And I do like to see that Andreas is quite willing to go for it. You know, I will say that the one issue with just broadcasting final tables in poker is that ICM poker can lead to some very tight play, and it's not always as telegenic as other, forms of poker. But seeing Andreas isolate with A7 and Jack 10 tells me he's here to play today, and that makes me optimistic for a very fun final table. So there's a look at our leaderboard right now. As we can see, a mostly Australian affair here. 1 American, 1 from China. 8 players remain.
Nolan Mizra, our 9th place finisher. Ben Richardson recently won the Australian Poker League title. And Jack Star event, it says. Gary Lin is the Australian player, and he is from China. Anita Savage in seat 6, last woman standing. She won the PLO 1515 side event during this festival. So she's already got 1 win in this festival. And with a 2nd place finish or above, can take the lead in the player of the festival.
Josh now with the King 7 of spades.
They're asking in the chat what the WPT package is. Tell them all about that, Tony.
Well, let me pull up the details here for you, Matt.
Okay. You know, it's the seed into our WPT World Championship at the Wynn Las Vegas, which will be in December again. That's a $10,000 seat, but there's also some things that come with that. See, Josh here did flop a spade draw with a King 7 of spades. Gary with the King 10, so does have the 10 of spades in his hand. Now has a straight draw. 46% to 42% in this hand here right now.
And an intriguing board, since Gary has the 10 of spades. He may feel inclined to continue here, whether that means calling or raising. I would think you will mostly continue with a call, since check raising these kind of boards is a little bit tough into the pre-flop raiser when they're the ones that hold, you know, the 8s, the jacks, the ace jack, the pocket aces. 9 of diamonds on the turn after he makes the call.
Now Gary does have the straight, or the open and straight draw as well.
Big fan of that check from Josh. Oh, excuse me, that was Gary checked, but Josh does check behind it. And I like that decision very much here with this amount of equity and this stack depth. And he will river the flush with the ace of spades here.
So you're Josh in this hand. Are you trying to see how much you can extract here? Are you afraid of the paired board? What are you thinking, Tony?
You're mildly concerned about the paired board, but not enough to stop you from betting huge on this river. It's a great river if it's checked to you to bet huge. Now Gary, because it's an ace of spades and he has the spade blocker, he has just straight blocker with the King 10, he may turn his hand into a bluff here. And then Josh has a pretty interesting decision between calling and shoving. And, you know, if we're just playing for chips, I think it's a pretty clear shove. At final tables, it's much, oh, we bet 2 million. Well, now Josh can just shrug and just call. Just say, hey, if you got a full house, you know, good for you, buddy. Yeah, Josh does just call. Yeah, that kind of made it easy on Josh in a way, because Gary went huge, which I like. You know, he goes huge. And he's basically saying, I have a flush or I have a straight, and whatever it is you have, I'm going to put enormous pressure on you because I don't think it's that good and I have the right blockers. So I don't think Gary should feel bad about the way he played his hand at all. I think that was actually a very gutsy way to play the hand and well selected in terms of the blockers he had to make a play like that. However, I also really like the way Josh played his hand with checking back the turn on that large amount of equity draw and having an awkward stack where you don't want to bet call your hand, you don't want to bet fold your hand. And when you check and hit in a scenario like that, you create the possibility that you win a ton of chips with a well-disguised hand.
All right, Tony, you said playing for chips. What do you mean by playing for chips?
Well, if it's early in a tournament, we're really only playing for chips. There's no monetary impact or immediate monetary impact to our decisions. Whereas when we get to a final table, we're playing what's called ICM poker, and that's a more awkward in some ways form of poker where our decision is more based around stack sizes than even the quality of our hand or our position, because we are ideally trying to ladder up and get those pay jumps when we are a short or a medium stack. And as the big stack, we're trying to accumulate chips to make sure that we get heads up or eventually get the win. And so what ends up happening is you need a much, much higher threshold to call off your entire stack or to put your entire stack at risk. And that's why I say that in the event he was facing, you know, a medium-sized bet, Josh would have a tough decision between shoving and calling, because even if we're just playing for chips, when we shove there, it's just like, look, we have that best hand too often to not shove and try and extract the maximum for our hand. But at a final table, sometimes when we shove, we run into a full house and we bust. And it's hard to get called by worse. So should we really be shoving, even with that good of a hand, if it creates some possibility that we're going to get knocked out?
Got the answer to that. What the player of the festival wins, they win a WPT Australia seat, which is 8,000 Australian dollars. So that's a quite a prize. It's part of the festival to come up September 14th through the 27th. So we have another event here in Australia. Again, the World Poker Tour has really expanded. I just got back from Paris. I'm going to Slovakia. We have events all over the United States. It's definitely a World Poker Tour, which is what we like to see.
That's exciting, Matt. I wish you the best. In Slovakia, it seemed like a really interesting place. I saw that it was on our itinerary now, and
yeah, they have
quite curious.
60 tables there, which is great. Love to see that.
My goodness, that's a big poker room.
Yeah, a lot of tournaments we go to in Europe are pretty small. We're just in Paris. We were Club Circus, and they only had 24 tables, Tony. And they got over 1,000 entries there as well. But it was an awesome event. And as you know, Paris is an amazing location. We have other events coming up in Paris as well. So happy to be partnered with Texas Poker for those events upcoming as well.
And how was your time in Paris?
It was great. It was actually great because we did bring my son. Marco came with us, and cut out of school. Sometimes you feel like missing a little bit of school for a lifetime experience like that is a good thing, and he sure enjoyed it, and my wife did as well. I was around the casino a lot, but met a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and hung out a lot with Bruno Fatoussi, which was always great. Bruno's a good guy, so
yeah,
it's always fun time whenever we're in Paris.
We do have a correction. Excuse me. Anita's from New Zealand, not Australia. So I missed that one in the flag insignia.
There we go. Is that not the same country? No, I don't think it is.
Only to Americans.
It's my island, right? That's what they say in the movies. I loved New Zealand when I went there. I love New Zealand and Australia. I just think the people there are so friendly, and it's definitely a different kind of vibe. And you lived there for a time, did you not, Tony?
Yeah, I spent the better part of 5 years in Australia and quite a bit of time in New Zealand. Several trips there, played a tournament there. I co-wrote a book there with Lee Nelson, stayed with him for a couple of weeks. In a small town not named after him called Nelson, New Zealand. Yeah, he had a beautiful resort there in this little microclimate overlooking a cliff. But Anita Savage, sharing your last name, has been a longtime nanny and caregiver over the last 20 years. She's been playing poker for a long time, but did not include her largest cash in her bio. So I'm going to guess that this is an opportunity at scoring her largest cash if she's not a full-time poker player, even if she's been playing for a long time. So a very exciting possibility for her today.
Absolutely. And she's out of the WPT League. The leagues down there are amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They have bar leagues, WPT League also as well. We had a big group of Australian players that came in for the WPT Championship, and for some reason, I got stuck in the bar with them many nights. The Australians are good people, a lot of fun to hang out with as well.
And they like a good drink. They do.
They did not let me sleep. That's for sure.
That's why I stayed off property. I knew. I was like, I stay on property. You're not going to sleep. This is just your whole life the whole time.
All right, Sheng just won the last pot with 7s, and now Gary has 7s in this hand, raises to 250,000.
I like this open from Gary, but one strange factor to final table play is oftentimes is one of the medium stacks. You actually pass up pass up raising some of these, small middle pairs that are very, very clear raises earlier in the tournament. Some of them become open fold, surprisingly, when there's a very high priority on just moving up the ladder. Gary clearly feels 7's good enough to continue raising here. Andreas making a very loose defend with the 5-2 offsuit. I spoke before about how I do like that Andreas is defending wide out of the big blind, especially as the chip leader. However, this is too much. This is too wide. Huh? Yes.
Yeah. He does correctly check the second pair here. I mean, you have to almost feel like that deuce might be good in some situations, right, Tony, or not?
Absolutely. This is about as good a flop Andreas can hope for without, flopping a straight or 2 pair or something. It's pretty dry on 10-10 deuce. Gary also getting a great flop for his hand, just betting 1 big blind here. So a very, very small bet. Now, paired boards from the big blind are often played as a check raise, even when you've got the little kicker there. And Andreas does check raise here, makes it 375,000 to go. Especially facing that small bet, it's just really nice to knock out overcards that have 6 outs. Or sometimes it's not only 6 outs, but they can runner a counterfeit 2 pair against you. If the turn is it could even happen in this example if the turn is an 8 and the river is an 8 and Andreas hypothetically.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, no.
Andreas turns.
What in the world?
Wow.
And now Andreas in a weird position where it's like, well, my hand improved. Let's just hope it's good. I don't think he has a 10, but
Goodness. 575. And Gary, I mean, you don't put a guy on a deuce here, right? I mean, he could think that he has a 10.
Well, as I said, paired boards, especially lower ones, if it was something like 8-8 deuce, 6-6 deuce, those are played from the big blind as a check raise very often, even when you just have the deuce. However, a lot of stuff is supposed to check raise, not just the paired portions of your range. And so Gary should be alarmed, but should not give up yet. And so I do like this call with his 7s. And even Andreas, I'm sure he's pretty confident he has the best hand, but by no means certain.
I don't know. I just in this spot, you are Andreas. You go for value here. What are you thinking?
Oh, you're definitely value betting. The question is how much, because Gary only has about a pot-sized bet behind. I think I like this sizing because this allows you to bluff small sometimes and put something like ace high to the test. Put these pocket pairs to the test. My guess is that in theory, we mostly use the all-in size, but this also allows Andreas the possibility to bet fold should Gary shove and he wants to put him on the 10. I just kind of think this works out nicely for him, and he's going to get some hero-ish calls from the pocket 7s of the world.
I mean, Gary's got to think I don't know. You tell me, Tony. I feel like I would call here for sure.
Ah, man, these are very, very difficult spots. And a lot depends on what you think about your opponent. Is this somebody who has it in him to chuck raise the flop on a paired board and then triple barrel you? A lot of people simply do not have that play as a bluff, period. They are only value. We've only watched Andreas play for a little bit. He's been a bit more on the action side of things. So it's really difficult for me to say what his player type is. Is he capable of that kind of thing, or is he strictly value here? I don't have a good answer if I'm in Gary's shoes. I might just decide if I don't know very enough about Andreas and I think he could be bluffing, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call 20 or 30% of the time. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to look at the tournament clock. And if the last digit on the clock, the second hand, is a 2 or a 3, whatever number I chose, then I'm going to make the call. And he does make this call, and he's going to be sick to see the deuce on the turn is what sealed his fate.
My goodness, Andreas just wins a huge pot, now to 11.6 million.
Very well played from Andreas. Just really well played.
Another question I have for you here, Tony, is
yes.
You see Andreas win this. He was already the chip leader. If you're at the table, do you want to see the chip leader go out even further in the lead, or would you rather see him lose some chips?
You want to see the chip leader accumulate even more, because that makes it more likely that somebody else is going to get eliminated. Like, even if you're one of the short or the middle stacks, you're happy for the chip leader to just chip up and up and up and up, and ideally drain the opponents around you so that it's more likely they get knocked out and you ladder. If you're second in chips, maybe you don't love it, because now the chip leader has the ability to bully the table and bully you at a level he didn't before. But for the most part, you're actually pretty happy to see the chip leader take the leg out of one of the medium stacks.
Unless, of course, you're the player he's taking.
Of course, yes. Very, very different.
All right. So Tim D in the chat is talking about the piano bar and White Russians. That's what we were stuck in, the piano bar drinking with the Australians. So, yes, we have some people there that were actually in the win, out on the rail. We got Bruno out on the rail as well, one of the people that were there. I know that we had a big contingent of Australian players at the win in December, and they are all coming back next year because they had such a great time.
Well, not surprisingly, the WPT World Championship at Win won best tournament, best event, best festival, exactly what the prize was at the Poker Awards the other night that you and I were in attendance in. And I think pretty much everyone expected it to win.
That was one that I was pretty sure the WPT had in the bag, because
right.
It was a surprise. It was even a surprise for me. I know that we put a lot of effort into it, and that the players responded in a way that I didn't expect, to be honest. So I was happy to see it.
I was extremely confident we were going to hit 20 million, but the number that we ended up getting was a big surprise to me. Absolutely. You know, I know there was, coming into the event, there was, a lot of confidence that it would break the 15 million guarantee. 20 million was kind of the optimistic target. I thought we got 20 million. Don't worry about that. But the 2,800 and change entries that we had in that thing, my goodness.
Yeah, it was amazing. Love to see it. Actual number, I think, was 2953.
Oh,
look
wow.
at that. Yeah, it was nearly.
I thought it was in the 2,800s.
Nearly 30 million, yeah.
Wow.
All right, Anita is going to call with the Queen 8 of clubs, Andreas with King Deuce of clubs.
And unfortunately for Anita, this is a strategy that's going to lead to some trouble. Limping in as a medium stack with Andreas, the chip leader, behind you. Shang, an experienced player in the small blind, also covers her about 2-1. Josh covers her about 2-1. She should be looking for excuses to avoid getting involved here, not looking for excuses to play more hands and to play them passively. So I do worry that Anita may bleed out some chips here with this approach.
And the flop does come. One club, 10-9-3. So she has a gut shot straight draw. Shang has nines a pair here.
Yeah, and pretty decent board for Anita. Decent board for Shang. Andreas sizing up this flop, even though he has nothing to do with it.
The 6 on the turn now. Puts Josh at 0% here, because the 7 would be a bigger straight. And Sheng does bet out 300,000. This pair of nines. Anita would have loved to have seen one more free card, but she does not get it. And she is making the call. Don't know about that either, Tony.
Well, she does have the double belly buster straight draw now, looking for any jack, any 7. But as you said, it's a fairly expensive price at 300,000. A jack, of course, would be an incredible card with Sheng making 2 pair. Instead, it is a king. And honestly, Matt, should Sheng check to her, this would be a brilliant opportunity for Anita to bluff, blocking queen jack and having just no value at showdown here, blocking 8-7 if that's somehow what Sheng has. Sheng, I think, just believes his hand is likely to be good, and he's just going to block here, try and get just a little bit of value and simplify his decision. Yeah, he's going to bet quarter pot.
$425 is the bet. Now it's up to Anita, who cannot call, but as you said, there is another option which she does not take, and Sheng wins this pot with the pair and wins 800,000 in that pot. Andreas kind of saying, well, I had a king. Could have called one more bet. Yeah. You got to let some winners go sometimes.
So Sheng, pretty well played hand there from the small blind, chipping up a little bit.
And again, does that hand play differently if Anita raises there instead of just limping it?
Yes, it does. Sheng would never see the flop with the jack 9. I think she would probably just get to the flop and then take it down with the bet.
Right.
And we do see her, lose some of her chips in that pot. And as a medium stack with Slav so incredibly short, the last thing she wants to do is lose half her stack and be at risk of elimination when there's one, maybe even 2 players who are very likely to go out ahead of her. So, if she has advisors in contact with her, they should be discouraging her from playing hands right now. Some people have people watching streams and kind of feeding them intel and feeding them strategy and so forth. Some people say, hey, I don't want to disrupt my flow. I just want to play the game. They got me there. I don't want to know what people are doing. Just leave me to it. Andreas now with the king queen on the cutoff. Sheng elects to just fold the button. Josh with the same hand in the small blind. I was going to say that both those ace-9s, when we were playing for chips, like to do some 3-betting, in particular in the small blind. Ace-9's a nice hand to go ahead and 3-bet there. I like giving it up, though, at the final table. I think you want a little bit better, or actually a little bit worse of a hand to 3-bet, strange enough. I think you don't want to have a 9 in your hand to make the light 3-bet, because you want to unblock some of your opponent's raise folds on the cutoff, like a jack 9 or a queen 9, king 9, those kind of hands. Having the 9 in your hand actually counterproductive for that goal.
And you're Slav here. You're the short stack. What's your thoughts, Tony?
Well, let's see. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Slav is still a couple of positions away from paying the big blind, and it is, 2 of his remaining 8 big blinds when he gets there. So, well, he needs to be aggressive here. He shouldn't force it. You're not just like, oh, I've got queen high. I guess I got to go for it. I think sometimes players overdo that kind of thing. I was playing with somebody, I won't name him, but he's had a lot of success recently. And we were playing a tournament the other day at the Win, and he got short stacked, and so he was under the gun, and he looked down at a king, and he didn't look at his other card, and he went all in. And I'm going to be honest with you, that's not a good play. That's a losing play. Most king X hands do not just rip it in there for your last 8 big blinds, but I think a lot of players get a certain amount of short and feel compelled. But right here, Mo, one of our short stacks with the ace-queen suited, moving it in blind versus blind.
Mo does take it with that all-in bet. So why are you picking on Cuz like that?
Nope, wasn't Cuz, but that's a pretty, pretty reasonable guess.
We love Cuz on the World Poker Tour.
We do love Cuz.
He's coming out to Slovakia, he said.
No way.
So we'll see. Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah, he's loved chasing that Player of the Year, and he's had a lot of success on the WPT. Sometimes you play in certain tours, certain events, just feel like you are a little more comfortable, that type of thing. I don't know. You got to feel like Darren Elias has to love playing on the WPT, Brian Altman, those guys that just continue to win on the WPT. It's like a comfort level. Maybe they don't have as much success in other events, but these new Prime events have just been really awesome. I mean, they're over $1 million, $1,100 buy-ins generally. This one is a little bit more, but $1,350 US. But I just think that these events are really, really good for the mid-major player. I just think that it's a great offering that WPT has put together, and I'm excited for the future of the Prime. That's for sure.
Tour is doing fantastic this event. Pretty clear indication of that. Sheng now opening it up to 300,000. New blinds, a 75,150K with a 150,000 big blind ante. So the min raises to 300K now. Sheng going up with the A7 of diamonds. And Ben in the big blind. Gonna see a flop with the 10-8 of clubs. And gets a, oh, excuse me. Gets a beautiful flop. Sorry, the flop went check so fast. I was like, whoa, was this an all-in pot and I just missed it or something?
There's a little something for everybody on that flop. The open-end straight draw for Sheng, 2 pair for Ben. Did get a second pair counterfeited, however. Sheng does call the 275. Now the river card is another 9. So a full house now for Benjamin. 9s full of 10s. Sheng does not have much here, except for an ace high.
Sheng doesn't have much, and if he was going to hero call a spot with ace high, having the 7 of diamonds doesn't seem like a great card to have along with it. You want to unblock some of your opponent's bluffs, and it's reasonable your opponent could bluff with 7, fill in the blank, 7-5. Queen 7, that kind of thing.
And Ben does bet the 850. Saying I think we'll just have to tuck his tail here and let it go. Maybe he has something else in mind, however. Hero call? He's using a time bank, Jeb.
Huh. Yeah, I would really not like the hero call here with the 7 in your hand. I think you can consider it sometimes when you just have the ace. And I guess you don't get to the river with that many ace highs, but you'll have some ace high hearts, for example, that would make a reasonable call at times. And Sheng does put the pieces together, lets his hand go. So Ben, our player with the largest score at this final table, takes that one down, looking to best his record score in this tournament if he should finish in the top 2 places.
Got some chat going on, and people are saying that you may be a little too hard on Anita, but I love your commentary, Tony, and I always think that you say exactly what you're thinking. I think that's the way it should be. I appreciate it, and I think that it helps people learn. Maybe the mistakes they're making. Yeah.
Don't think I insulted her or her game at all. I just think I was saying that limping in with the bigger stacks behind you is going to be a costly strategy. Sheng now with the pair of jacks.
That's a good thing. I pick up something every time I listen to you talk, Tony. Obviously, I am the amateur here, but I love to hear it and appreciate it, and I think that others should as well. Generally, 99% of the time, do not have any bias here. We're always trying to call a fair game here, and I think that's what you do every time. So I appreciate it, and here we go. Gary is moving all in for 1.1 million. Slav has a hand that he would have probably liked to get his money in with, but at this point, he's facing a raise and an all-in.
Yeah, and not only is it unlikely he has the best hand now, but he could just fold, and most of the time Sheng's going to call Gary, considering the price. I mean, almost always. And a bunch of the time, Slav ends up laddering. So if I'm him, I'm never in a million years calling this off. I know it looks very tempting because you finally have a decent hand, and you could basically triple up here, but it would be a decent-sized mistake in my opinion to call off as Slav. And there we go. That's a good fold there. It's so tough when you're just super short and you're waiting for a hand and you're waiting for a hand and you finally find something and there's all this action. But just the possibility of laddering is really big here.
And I believe Sheng did make the call here. Or am I missing something? Or I think he's already made the call. The jacks. Yes, he has. And here we go to the flop. Ace queen versus the jacks. A queen in the window there. Gary is looking good here with the potential all in. Double up here for 1.125. Another diamond on the turn. And Gary has the queen of diamonds as well. He's down to 1 out, the jack of spades. And the river card is the 4 of clubs. Gary's going to double up here. Jacks. I hate them. I hate them. With a fiery passion.
Well, I'm sure Slav is the most disappointed player on this table. There went his chance to move up 1 pay spot. And he also had one of the aces as well, so it was even less likely that the ace queen was going to catch up. Pretty disappointing for the jacks and for everybody else around the table who's hoping to improve 1 spot on our ladder. Eighth place, paying $45,500. Now I've got our chat up on the YouTube as well. So if anybody comments in there.
Chat.
I'll be able to respond. See, somebody said that they played the Aria 500 back in the day. That was a great event, and some huge turnouts for that event. Tons of opening flights. We have a raise from Josh here with the Jack 10. Ben with the Ace King moves it in on the button for a little over 20 blinds and successfully takes that one down. As I mentioned earlier, Ben does have the largest cash of anybody at this final table. However, Sheng Yi has a $180,000 score from quite recently, 2022. He's from Shanghai. He's been playing poker since 2015.
Where was his scores at? Because he does look familiar to me.
It was on, I believe it was GG Poker.
Okay.
So presumably a online score there. Pretty nice online score to get. But Ben Richardson from Melbourne, originally Hobart, in Tasmania. He's a 35-year-old who's been playing poker for a living for 13 years. And, oh, actually, I think I misread this. I think his largest cash is 300K.
Oh, wow.
But I don't want, I'm going to look him up quick because it looks like in his writing it says CAD. Let me double check that. We'll check his Hendon Mob.
Shang's raised to 350 with the sixes. Anita did lay down the King 10 of clubs. Andre is now here with 10-8 offsuit.
Aha, I found it. He got sixth in the Aussie Millions in 2018 for 300,000 Australian.
Okay.
So he has played for some big money before. He also had a sixth place finish at a 2018 Aussie Millions 1K event for 40,000. That would have been a huge final table as well. I mean, what an Aussie Millions. He had two sixth place finishes, just separated by about a week in time. And he does travel for poker a little bit as well. He has scores from Ireland, from Bucharest, World Series in the United States, some from European Poker Tour, places like Spain and Malta.
Oh,
so definitely a seasoned vet.
There you go. And he is from China, correct? But a world traveler. And
no, I was
again,
talking about Ben.
Oh, okay.
Sheng. I'll take a look at Sheng's Hendon Mob as well.
He looks very confident. Gary now with 2 9s. Raises to 300,000 now. Slav has the hand I think you'll be going all in with, right, Tony? I mean, has to ace queen.
Yes.
And he does.
Yep, a no doubter.
775. Nita lets the 5-4 go. Andreas with 10-9. And 11.7 million. He
775.
And Gary will certainly be priced into calling Andreas here. Thinking that one over. A little bit surprising.
Does let it go. And Gary's going to make that call with the 9s. We'll see the hands here. Slav the all-in player with ace queen. Looking for a double up here against Gary's 9s.
Gary calls immediately and shows pocket 9s. And risk in this hand, here comes the flop.
And here comes the flop. The flop is a jack ace and king. Ace queen for Slav, looking good here.
Yeah, so far, the short stacks have had good fortune, and they're all ins.
2 diamonds on the flop. Gary does have the 9 of diamonds, an ace on the turn. Still at 2 outs here for Gary. He needs a 9 to eliminate Slav, or Slav's going to double up here. Trying to get right back in this tournament. It is a jack. Ace is full for Slav. He'll win this pot. Gary now down to 1.9 million, even with Slav as one of the shorter stacks.
Gary has had a tumultuous final table thus far. He ran that gutsy bluff earlier, but ran right into a rivered flush when he had the key blocker with the 10 of spades. Certainly told me that he came to play today. And been less than fortunate in his all-ins as well. So nobody really short at the final table following that double up for Slav. It's kind of a variety of medium stacks.
That's right. See, Gary has a good attitude, still with a smile, even though he's lost a lot of his chips here. Love to go back to Australia again. I know that you had a big part of your life living in Australia and had a major score yourself at Aussie Millions.
Yeah, I got second in that event, runner-up to longtime professional Ari Angle. A lot of good memories at the Crown Casino.
Benjamin with the ace-jack raises to 300,000. Slav with king-5 lets it go. Now Anita with just an ace that we'll see here makes the call. Shang with queen-3 lets it go. Josh 8-7 will be out of this hand, I believe, or not. He makes the call with 8-7. So 3 players to the flop here. We don't know what Anita's kicker is here with the ace. Flop is 1 spade, 5-3 of clubs. Josh checks, Ben checks, Anita reaching for chips.
And I can't help but think that that other card is a queen. Both because it makes a lot of sense as a hand to flat call, but also just the speed in with which she cut out her bet. There was a lot of certainty to it. And you see that from players sometimes when they know for sure, okay, I'm going to bet. They can just very quickly, rapidly cut out their bet. There's just sort of no doubt about it. That
Right,
felt like a
and-
no-doubter to me.
And not seeing her card.
But I mean, it would also just make the most sense as a way to play. You know, flatting ace queen there makes a lot of sense. It's just a little too weak to move in. You could move it in, but I think flatting plays nicely there. Although I guess at 150 now, she only has about 20 blinds. So yeah, you certainly could move in pre-flop, but flatting a very viable option. Now with Gary under the gun, and these spots are frustrating because you have a very nice hand, but you're under the gun. You only have like 13 blinds, and you just want to avoid confrontation on this stack size at a final table. Looks like Gary does want to, oh my goodness, he wants to go all in. I can't support this one, Matt. That's just too many chips to risk in this position with this kind of hand. I think, again, if we're playing for chips, this is a totally fine hand to move in here, but when we are under ICM, I think it is just a bit too many chips to risk in this way. But Gary just, he clearly came to play and to try and win today. And I admire that when guys come to win a final table. They say, hey, I don't really care about laddering up one spot or so. I'm just going to try and get as many chips as possible and win. And we've seen that from Gary in a variety of ways so far at this final table.
Got some events coming up here on the calendar, including WPT Cambodia, Prime Cambodia, March 16th to 20th. Amsterdam is the 29th through the 1st of April. And Rolling Thunder right after that, April 1st to the 4th. I think you're going to that event. So I look forward to seeing you up there, Tony.
Yeah, I will be at Rolling Thunder. And then our Seminole Hard Rock as well in April, following Easter.
Don't forget, we'll have a Champions Club dinner at Rolling Thunder. Ben Irwin and his team always put on a good show. And take care of our WPT champions.
They really do. It's a great setup they have over at Thunder Valley. And I'm always a fan of properties that cater to poker players, that like poker players, that spend time in our community. And that's absolutely the case for Ben Irwin and his team there.
Then we're going to India, Slovakia, and to LA, Vietnam, and then to San Remo, Italy. Looking forward to all of those events. And you can see those at WPT.com if you want to check out our schedule of upcoming events. As I said before, we're putting the world in the World Poker Tour.
Yeah, it is once more a global tour. Great to see. And I'm happy that there's so much demand for poker across the world as we go to this King High flop.
Yeah, it seems like we set a record every time we run a Prime event, so it's good to see. Carry with Jack 3 of Hearts up against Jack 9 for Andreas. Andreas a chip leader and has position in this pot after Gary checks. Does bet it 475. That's going to win the pot. Andreas increases his chip lead. See the new WPT logo hat that he's wearing. I love to see that as well. Glad that some of those made their way down to Australia.
Yeah, just so I know, if you're.
Andreas, speaking of players who came to win, he's playing like a guy who wants every chip on the table so far, isolating some of the all-in players. He's been the only one able to knock somebody out, really. Came in as our leader with about 8 million. It's chipped up to over 12 now.
Total chips in play is 37 million roughly. So he's creeping up towards a third of the chips with 8 players remaining. A good spot to be in, that's for sure. Andreas now with a pocket pair of 9s. He'll be in the pot.
375.
And he does raise it to 375. And we're at 75, 150 now with the 150 big blind ante. That big blind ante does not reduce at any point.
This is an interesting spot now for Shang with the ace king of diamonds. He'll likely 3-bet. And then I'm curious to see what Andreas does in response, because he's been so willing to put a lot of chips in pre-flop. If I'm in Andreas's shoes, I just call. Oh, that changes things. Gary finds a pair of queens. So now I believe the action is going to go that Gary will move all in. Andreas will presumably get away from his 9s, and Gary will end up flipping against Shang. But I could be wrong. Perhaps Andreas is even more keen to get chips in the middle than I believe.
Gary is all in for 1.7. So Andreas has a decision here. Predict he will use his first time chip here.
1.double. Okay, it is less than double.
We will see.
Four. 700,000 more.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Putting it in.
Wow. Andreas makes the call. If I'm Shang, I think I just rip it in and try and drive Andreas out of the pot. But these spots under ICM are very nebulous. I think that's what I would do, especially since Andreas has seemed a little too willing to put chips in the pot pre-flop. I think I'd feel okay in Sheng's shoes just moving it in and basically getting, 2-1 with my ace king up against Gary.
Sorry? So you said we can't. No, you can always raise because you've been raised by king.
But it's not a fun situation. You're not like fist pumping to get the money in here, even with ace king suited.
Yep.
And it may be that he was clarifying that the action was reopened.
So you've raised by
625.
620.
Just illegal.
And he's raised, so yes, you can.
Yeah. So just clarify.
But yeah, I do believe this is a mistake from Andreas following this much action to call the cold 4-bet, especially since Sheng is still live behind him. And I do believe that's what they are clarifying right now. Is this considered a raise by Gary? So once Andreas calls, am I allowed to put more money into the pot?
And what is the answer, Tony? Or maybe I should just say...
That will depend on how much he initially 3-bet to.
So the initial bet was 300, then it was raised to 1.7.
No. It was 300 and then to 1 million, right? I want to say.
So 700,000 was the raise.
Yeah, and
so
since Gary has made it 700,000 more, you're the tournament director, you're the expert, but I'm pretty sure that reopens the action.
That reopens exactly the amount needed to reopen the betting.
Yeah.
Am I legal to raise after he called?
But if I had to guess, that is the conversation that they are having now.
You cannot hear what they're saying either.
I think that's what Sheng is going to look to do here.
The point is, he wouldn't call if he would know.
Yeah, I understand. So what's the difference? So it goes million to 1.7.
I am unfamiliar with the TD's name here. I know that Danny McDonough is also in the house here.
Between the 675 to the million.
But the information that I've given this gentleman.
But yes, the betting is reopened.
Okay. So what you're saying, you've given the wrong information?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. So now you want to know if you are able to take your chips back. No. So essentially, anything the dealer says is it's up to you to know what the difference. Yeah.
That's fine.
So, and that's situation.
Okay.
So if you directed him to act out of turn or something, we could go back on it. But because ultimately it's your bet, and what you need to know what the difference is, so it comes down to.
Okay. My apologies. It's all good, Alex. Okay, so we have a call, and you have 10 seconds left on your time. Okay. Time.
So at a minimum, Sheng is going to call, but I'm of the belief that he's going to move it all in and get this pot heads up against Gary.
I mean, there's a lot of time that has elapsed here, so we're going to see what's going on here.
And Sheng is all in. This is a very nice play from Sheng. And did Andreas did he just call? I think he said, did he just say call?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Did he? He did. Holy cow, look at that.
Whoa.
This is the pot of the tournament, obviously.
Wow. Andreas, of course, calling off way too many chips here. He's lucky to be flipping against Sheng at this point. Gary, with the chance, of course, to more than triple up. And should Andreas hit a 9, and it doesn't lead to a diamond flush for Sheng, he can score the double knockout of 2 of the other, especially, Sheng is one of the larger stacks on this table at about 7 million. So let's go to a flop in this completely wild hand. Queen, Jack, 5, Gary. Happiest man in the Gold Coast right now.
Wow.
Needs to fade a 10.
Hey, this is me.
Set here. And Andreas looking to pick up a sizable side pot here. A king
on
now.
the turn. Oh, it's a heart.
Andreas, the only one with a heart, picks up the flush draw.
Wow, 7 of hearts.
This place is gonna erupt if the river is a heart.
Shang is nervous as can be.
What a heart.
Here is the river. It's an 8.
8 of spades. So Shang, we lose nobody. Shang will take a bunch of chips off Andreas. Gary will more than triple up. And Andreas calling off way too many chips, pretty much every decision point. Goes from our huge chip leader to now probably around 4th in chips approximately. And you can, he's not literally sweating right now, but you can kind of feel the temperature rising on Andreas. I know that feeling when you're deep in a tournament, you have a close decision, you make what ends up being the wrong decision, you lose a ton of chips, your body temperature shoots up about 20 degrees.
Tired of sitting down at a poker table filled with pros? Then come to WPT Global, the online home of the World Poker Tour. With a maximum of 2 pros at each table, everyone has a chance to win. We are leveling the playing field at WPT Global. Sign up today at WPTglobal.com/OTT and use bonus code TV27 and we'll match your first deposit, dollar for dollar.
Lost 56% of his chips in that hand. Whew. Big hand though. I mean, it's
Well, Gary, ecstatic. He was out of here moments ago. He was really short, and now with 5.4 million, right in the thick of things.
all right. You're Slav. What are you thinking here?
You gotta be effing kidding me. I was, so close to at least getting 1 ladder with the possibility of 2. If the river's a heart, Slav moves up 2 positions. If the king doesn't land on the turn, he moves up 1 position. Oh, excuse me. No, wait. Gary flopped the set. Yeah, no, wait. Oh, without the king on the turn, Shang gets knocked out with the ace-king. If he doesn't, hit straight or an ace or something like that. So Slav has just got to be so frustrated right now.
Because even Andreas has a fair amount of chips, so.
Looking forward to an updated check on our leaderboard following all that craziness.
There it is. Shang Yi is a chip leader with 10.4 million. Gary, second place with 5.4, but Andreas tied at 5.4. So Andreas still has plenty of chips. You just can't let that get to you, right, Tony? I mean, this spot, if you're Andreas.
Yeah, and I just worry. I worry with Andreas that not only did we see him call off way too many chips with a pair of 9s there, but now we have determined that he is far too willing to gamble and likely to be tilting. I mean, if he's not tilting, congratulations, you're very iron-willed, but I think most players who are not accustomed to playing for big money, who make a huge misstep, are going to be feeling some tilt following a hand like that. Even a little tough to watch, honestly.
Anita has called again with ace-3. Benjamin with ace-queen.
And Ben, his hand might be a little too good to shove. I think if I'm in his shoes, I might make it like 650,000 and try and get a call from some hands that I dominate and save shoving for like offsuit combos of ace-queen. He's just going to move all in. Certainly a fine option. But I think we might be able to maximize the value of our hand by making it, 4x. Slav again with a nice suited ace in the big blind, facing a little bit too much action to call off. Of course, you do need a stronger hand to call all in under ICM than to go all in yourself. He may be thinking here, well, maybe Ben is just trying to pick on Anita. We know Anita tends to limp a little bit too much. Maybe I can call him off here and catch him a little bit lighter. But yeah, Anita, you know, continues to put herself in harm's way with the over limping. Seems to be considering this, and this would be most of her stack, so it would be a costly error to make.
Those suited aces.
And she does let this one go.
So Ben picks up a pot here. Lots of action at this table. Commentators, you love to see that.
Yeah, that is fantastic action and way more fun to do commentary on than, you know, everybody playing Robot Perfect.
Come on, Anita. Andreas with Queen 9 under the gun here.
And Andreas, I believe, started with an open here. Yep, to 375,000. Sheng right behind with a pair of eights. Nice hand to make a call with. And that's how he'll play it.
Sheng's in with those eights, and Anita, Queen Deuce, lets it go. Andreas, 2 overcards here, Queen 9 of diamonds up against the eights for Sheng. When you get some of those chips back in this pot. Recently lost. The flop is a diamond, a 3-diamond flop. Andreas has flopped a flush draw. All right, you're here, Tony. You flopped Jen here with the queen high flush. What is your thought process here?
Well, I think on this kind of board, we want to mix bets and checks. Monotone boards are played pretty passively. I like that Andreas has opted for a small bet size here when we do bet. I think we only want to use small bet sizes. And so this time he decides to bet it and gets the quick fold from Sheng. And not much decision there for the pocket eights with no diamond.
You're Andreas. Are you thinking I could have won more chips in that pot, or are you just happy to take it down right there?
You know, in many cases, your opponent is not going to have a hand that can continue. It's tempting to check once because a lot of your range does want to check there. I mean, even the times when you have an ace, it's going to want to do a fair amount of checking there. You know, these narrow range spots, early position versus early position. We don't necessarily do a ton of betting out of position. We start with a check pretty often, even on boards that are pretty favorable for the raiser. Just because our opponent also has a very strong and narrow range there. So, you know, certainly worth considering a check on the flop, but not a mandatory play. And I don't think he would have got any more money this time around. Sheng going up to 350 with the ace 10. Slav thinking this one over, but I think it would be optimistic to move in here with the queen jack.
Does let it go. We need a fold.
Yeah.
Now Andreas with king 6.
Again, another spot where as a medium stack up against a chip leader, you should be staying out of the fray and actually folding here. As we've seen, Andreas really likes to defend his big blind. We've seen him defend far, far worse than king 6. So he is going to make the call. And a favorable flop for Sheng, 10-5-4.
Top pair. Andreas is not hit his holdings with the king 6. Andreas checks.
And I would be surprised if the hand doesn't end with this bet from Sheng. He's gone for a bigger sizing on the flop. And you do see that with the top pair, top kicker type combos more often. But I think it's often unbalanced. Some players only bet the size with like ace-10, pocket jacks, pocket queens. And then the times they're bluffing, they just use the small size, so you do have to be careful to balance that one out. Andreas will let it go. And so the rich get richer. Sheng, our newly minted chip leader, takes that pot off of ex-chip leader, Andreas. And Sheng so far playing a nice final table. Let me check on what his experience level is. As we said earlier, he's from Shanghai. He's been playing since 2015. And yeah, he has that $180,000 score on GG quite recently in 2022. I don't know if that is the name. Let's see. He's known under in the Hendon Mob. I think I may have found him though.
Okay. Slav 6-9.
Yes, we did. And yeah, it looks like he won a 5,000 World Series International Circuit Australia at the Gold Coast. So this casino has been good to him in 2022 for 156,000 Aussie, which is 105,000 US dollars. That is his lone major score. His only other final table came in a teams event in 2016. Doesn't necessarily have a lot of live cashes, but 2022 seems like he really picked it up. He did have 3 cashes with the win, another one for 16th place, and what was probably the main event of that stop. So a really nice stop for him in November, December of 2022, where he cashed for another 20,000 Australian. So he's in good form. That's the way you'd put it.
Trace, let's that go. Sheng is going to take this pot down with 10-3 off, winning the blinds in ante.
Yeah, just whatever. Yeah, we get chicken.
Looks like those, I guess, are kind of like an aqua color chips are 25,000, and the blue chips are 100Ks. Fairly similar colored chips here.
Yes, I believe you're right about that, Matt. Just the two colors in play for the moment.
About to be going to 400,000, so. The quarter chips will still be in play at that level. Slav with 8-4 lets it go. Anita folds. Andreas folds his king 6 suited. And Sheng now with ace jack. Playing the rush. Let's see what he does here. That's 450. Josh with ace 9 offsuit.
Yeah, finding a playable hand here. He'll make the call. Likely believes he has the best hand, but we know he's dominated, so we go to a flop. And it is Jack 6 deuce, 2 clubs, so another great flop for Sheng. Top pair, top kicker once more.
Also the ace of clubs. And he's betting out 700,000.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether Sheng using these larger sizings is going to be balanced. We've seen this twice now where he flops top pair, top kicker, and he sizes up his C-bets on fairly uncoordinated boards. And if I were, one of these other players being fed information about the stream, I would start to suspect that Sheng sizes up on the flop when his hand is strong, but on a little bit on the vulnerable side. Which in fairness are the hands that you are supposed to be sizing up the most. But as I said, when we saw him play the ace-10, I question whether it is balanced by also sizing up hands that are bluffing. So to give you an example, on 10-5-4, when the big blind checks, a hand you could balance sizing up with would be something like Jack 9 suited with a backdoor flush draw, or Queen Jack suited with a backdoor flush draw, or if it's 10-5-4, maybe you raised ace 3 or ace 2 suited. You could size up one of those hands, and they're basically hands that if you get check raised off them, you don't lose a ton of equity, but you would prefer to just be one and done with the bet. And sometimes you can fold out low pairs. Sometimes you can fold out straight draws that actually have, a gut shot plus the 6 pair outs for a 10 outer. And folding out those kind of hands is really valuable.
Sheng with ace 3.
Certainly as the chip leader, I'd like to see him just raise any ace on the button.
And he just limps here, I believe. Did.
I wish I could say something nice about that, but I can't.
Now Josh
I don't like that one bit. I guess.
Mo with ace 10 suited.
Yeah. And Mo being handed a slam dunk all in spot. This limp ends up saving Sheng one big blind, but I just really don't think this is the kind of hand that we want to be limping the button with as the chip leader. We just want to keep playing downhill and applying pressure, and it's not like ace 3 necessarily flops that well. So a broken clock is right twice a day, and in this time it is, oh my goodness, is he gonna call? That would be a substantially larger error.
Bigger than the one he's made by just limping.
Yes. Yeah. Mo hasn't played a hand yet. There we go. And Josh, disappointed to see he has to fold Jack 10 suited. Cannot make this call. But very frustrated.
And so Mo wins his pot.
Get a free 300,000. No, stop it. Yeah?
Seems real happy about it.
You owe me one now, Mo. Huh? You owe me one now.
Well, Mo, picking up his first pot of this final table, came in as one of our short stacks and has just been enjoying the ride, hasn't had any real decisions yet, has watched some other players put themselves at risk while he just kind of relaxes. Mo's a 35-year-old, works in finance, been playing poker for 10 years, grew up in Sydney. His largest tournament cash, $35,000. Says his greatest poker accomplishment is nothing good yet, but he's got an opportunity for a great one today.
Nina folded ace-8. Andreas now with ace-9.
375.
Does put out a race of 375.
Oh, man. Shang right behind with a pair of kings, and we've seen how much difficulty Andreas has folding to pre-flop action. So you wonder if there could be fireworks here, and as we know, one of his aces already out of the deck.
This race is 900,000.
Yeah, a little bit of a small 3-bet here from Shang. Again, one of those things you see players get a little unbalanced with. You know, we saw him 3-bet ace-king earlier from 300,000 to $1 million, but now he's 3-betting kings from 375 to 900. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but again, if you only use these plays with really strong hands, it can be kind of transparent. However, if Andreas has been too loose in putting in chips pre-flop, especially when he's been given a good price, then who cares? Just go small and induce this guy who has trouble folding into sticking around, and that's working out nicely for Sheng right now, as Andreas making a call that could end up costing him a ton if he gets a 9-high board. Certainly not a hand we want to be raise calling against a superior stack at a final table, but Andreas, as we know, oh my goodness, Matt, I can't believe that that's actually what happened. We get the 9-high board. And as we've been talking about, Andreas just puts far too many chips in. I worry that he's going to do something like check raise the flop or even just lead out, and he is. He's going to lead right out. And this is, you know, this is just a disaster, Matt. Sheng acting very quick. Andreas immediately calling.
Goodness, Andreas.
And just a fiasco of a hand here. Sheng having played it beautifully. Andreas, our chip leader, coming into the final table, our huge chip leader, only an orbit ago, now at risk of elimination with just 4 outs. I mean, I know it's showing 5, but we know that one of the aces was folded. So just 4 outs going to the turn. This is brutal.
And there
King on the turn, and that is it. Sheng has locked it up and scored a massive KO here. Andreas, our chip leader, as I said just an orbit ago, eliminated in 8th place. He's going to take home $45,564. And I'm sure some very mixed emotions.
Yeah, that's a tough one for Andreas. But again, a good week, 45,000 Australian dollars. But he had hoped for much, much more than that just a little while ago, as you said, with the chip lead. And with that pot, I believe we're going to take a short break here. Stick around. You've seen plenty of action, plenty more action to come. The next player out getting 58,534, and you see Sheng Yi has just amassed a massive chip lead here, 17,075,000. Slav's still the chip short stack with 1.5. Tony, we'll be right back with more action.
Yes, we will.
I had a king.
All right, we are back. You see Sheng Yi has a chip lead, 85 big blinds, 17,075,000 in chips. Josh Foster from the United States in third with 4.3 million. It is Josh's birthday today as well, Tony. Did you know that?
That's always a good omen at a final table. I've always believed in the birthday luck. You're lucky on your birthday.
I didn't change it.
All right, Gary now with ace king of diamonds. We've seen this hand, exact hand, win a lot of chips at this final table. To recap, it was a big pot in which our chip leader, former chip leader, now eliminated player Andreas had 2 9s, and Sheng had the ace king of diamonds. And queens as well for Gary in that hand. And then, next thing you know, Andreas was not the chip leader, and now he has been eliminated in 8th place. We are down to the final 7. 7th place is going to pick up 58,534. First place, 374,953, which includes that seat to the WPT Championship at Wynn Las Vegas in December. So we will see what happens.
I don't know about you, Matt, but I expect that event to grow year over year.
I do as well.
Yeah, I think the whole poker world was impressed, and those that didn't go had pretty bad FOMO over not attending.
For sure. Slav Rapinski is the short stack in this event. He's down, I think he has over 1 million still. So still in it. Mo now with ace king of hearts.
Our blinds are up. We are playing 100,000, 200,000.
And he does go all in.
Just the 10 big blinds, rips it in.
Slav's considering it. He's down to a 1.2 million. 6 big blinds. He does not call.
Slav, a bit more of a methodical player. You know, he kind of takes his time, thinks it over. Is there a reason I should call this off? Okay, no. But yeah, what a fireworks. What a fireworks display we had just before the break. The ace-9 up against the kings. I didn't really think we were going to get a 9-high board. I mean, I don't even know what percent of boards in all of poker are 9-high, especially when somebody's holding a 9. And
you did say it, though.
I did say it. I said, oh, you know, if he should get a 9-high board, he's just going to end up stacking off here. I got this terrible feeling. That's exactly what he did. He led right out, got raised, and just ripped his. He couldn't be happier to rip his stack in, and it was kind of like, yeah, you know, your opponent has an overpair.
All right, so you're Andreas. You win your way in through a satellite. What are you learning here, Tony? What are you thinking about trying to do better next time?
I would say if Andreas, wants to take poker more seriously, the thing he really needs to work on is his ICM game. There's just a big difference between the way you play at a final table or at a bubble and the way you play the rest of a tournament. And it felt pretty clear to me that he was not aware of that distinction. And that's what he needs to improve most immediately, so that if he ever has another opportunity like this, he can make the most of it. But for now, Sheng raised the Jack-10 first to act. I like that as our big chip leader, he's opening up his raising range to include the Jack-10. Slav finally finds a hand he can move all in with. And he does get called by Sheng, who is getting the great price. So a nice call from Sheng there, and his Jack and 10 are both live. So he kind of likes what he sees.
And the flop king 7-4. Slav is in the lead with his ace high. Back